G'day, Pete here from PPA, and welcome back to this week's show, Building Property Investments Australia, the only place to be for real facts, real figures, and real flaming hotspots. Look, today's facts is the question that is often asked, and we see every day: does cheap make strong return on investment? Which is why you invest for in the first place, is for high growth, high rental returns, and importantly, high capital growth and strong tax benefits. So let's look at it. I'm going to cover off all the pros, and then Tony's going to come on and talk about all the key factors of why cheap doesn't necessarily mean strong growth and returns for your investment outcome. So the first up here is affordability and value. Look, at PPA, we're always out for that for our clients, looking for the best value properties in the best locations, and affordability is always in the back of our mindset, because we don't want people to overcapitalise, as I'll talk a bit about in a moment. But when we talk about affordable, you still must be very focused on quality. You want master plan communities where there's new infrastructure going in there, adding huge value to the land. You always want to be in an infill estate where there's some excuse me, I'm choking. There is some great infrastructure already around you, and you're close to all the amenities. But whatever you want to make sure there's a massive difference between a high quality estate, a master plan, blue chip quality estate, compared to a very poor estate, which is full of investors and poor quality builds. And when we talk about quality estates, and Tony will talk more about this later, about the poor side of things, but you want to make sure that there is, just a streetscape. Tony and I inspect over 300 estates a year with our matrix system, and look, a lot of times we don't need to get the matrix out. We can drive into the estate, we can see it's poor quality, the lights, the paths, the playgrounds, and just the quality of the houses within the estate. We just turn around and walk and drive it straight out again, because we can tell that that's not a place we would invest ourselves, therefore we wouldn't recommend to our clients. So these things are very important for strong capital growth and rental returns and rental demand, and attracting the quality tenant that you really want in your rental property. So that very, very important. Affordability is very important, but it's important that you're getting quality and value for your money. So when you're purchasing a property, you're getting all the things you need, but you're still getting a strong value. Okay, so don't overcapitalise is a big factor. Too many people will go out there and spend over and above what they need to. We always talk about being below the ECB, which is established capital benchmark. We want to be affordable, not buying the biggest blocks and the biggest houses. We want our clients' houses and our own investments to be surrounded by larger homes, where people are spending a lot more money. They're buying the bigger blocks, and they're building bigger houses and spending much more money. And for example, the average house might be $700,000 in this estate. We might want to sit around the $450, $500 max maybe, to be well under that ECB established. So that way, there's more uplift from all the houses around you as their values grow. That will drag up the value of your property. So again, that's very important when it comes down to not overcapitalising. Another reason you don't overcapitalise is so you can duplicate sooner, because often when you borrow too much money to buy a property, you can't duplicate for some years, because it ties up all your borrowing capacity, which means if you want to borrow money from the bank for your next property, the bank looks at your debt to service ratio, and because you have so much debt on a very expensive property, you can't borrow again for many years. And and you want to be able to borrow and build on your portfolio, so you get the power of compound capital growth, and importantly have a diversification in your portfolio, which is one of those last options here. So instead of buying one property that's very expensive, you still want to make sure it's affordable. But you want to be doing it at a value, so you can possibly buy two properties. So, for example, we have clients buying house and land for mid-300s for a full turnkey property, up to 600s, 700, depending on what you want and what's right for you. But it can be very affordable. And if you're buying a property for $700,000 in one location, maybe you can buy two properties for $350 in two different cities. So you've got a diversified portfolio, as long as each city is the right time of the property cycle, as other videos you already saw that we discussed, how important that is. But that's where I'm trying to get the point across. That you can possibly buy two properties rather than overcapitalising by buying one. So Tony's going to come on now and talk about the importance of what is the big what's all the wrong things to do when you're buying a cheap property, and what can that mean to your investment. But importantly, just taking that fact that, you know, value is very important, affordability is very important, but it doesn't always mean strong growth, and that's the important thing, which Tony's going to cover off right now. Thanks, Tony.
Hi everyone, Tony. Thank you, Peter. Hi everyone, Tony from PPA. Yeah, Peter's right. Often when you buy cheap, it equates to a lot of problems or a lot of issues that lead to low return on investment. And we're going to look at some of those now. It doesn't actually equate to high return on investment. In most cases, in my 30 years in this industry, buying cheap means cheap. It doesn't equate to high capital growth. And these are the reasons why. Poor quality estate doesn't present well. There's not enough intrinsic value. There's not infrastructure going in, driving jobs and price up. Certainly not enough of it. Okay, and if you have too many investors in a street or in an estate, you've got too many people on a low socioeconomic standard of living that don't have a lot of money. You don't have enough owner-occupiers driving the price up, like Peter said, established capital benchmark. Being surrounded by bigger homes, people buying the bigger blocks, building bigger homes, driving up your medium price growth faster. All right, we all know that if you go to a lower budget estate, you've got too many investors, you drive down the street and, you know, people, their front yards just don't look very attractive. That streetscape is important that Peter touched on. So that's one of the major problems. Poor quality build. You've got to have a quality build to get a quality tenant, guys. And design comes into that as well, the floor plan. A lot of the time when you get a cheap house, it's got a smaller rooms, smaller bedrooms, smaller living rooms. It doesn't flow well. It's got lower quality inclusions, smaller al fresco. Everything is sort of jammed in a bit smaller with less of the luxuries of life that most tenants would want and pay more for. Be happy to rent for a higher price point. Okay, so your return that way is less as well. And when you resell down the track, same thing applies. People can see that the rooms are smaller, but you haven't spent enough attention to detail. The inclusions are poorer. You know, the alfresco is smaller. The streetscape, how it presents the front facade is a poorer quality. It will never give you the same capital growth, right, as putting some thought into the design and the layout of that plan and the materials they're using in that house to get a higher return on investment, both for rental and for resale. It makes a big difference. All right, poor quality tenants. Obviously, with a low budget area where they're all rentals because you bought into a cheap inferior estate and thought you got a good deal, is going to get you a poor quality tenant as well. Someone that wants to pay bottom dollar, right? Someone on a low socioeconomic standard of income and living, and they're only going to pay what that house deserves. And if it's a poor quality build in an inferior area, your returns are going to be lower as well. All right, so that doesn't add up either, guys. It's really important to look at all these fundamental elements properly. Maintenance. If it's built poorly, you're likely to have more maintenance issues, right? So think about that as well. And if they're putting the low budget inclusions, whether it's air conditioning, whether it's stove, hot plate, whatever it is, if they're putting those low budget inclusions in, you're likely to have maintenance issues sooner because they're not of a good quality, they're of a poor quality. And again, that's why you got the price so cheap. So don't just look at the price, look at all the fundamental elements that drive good return on investment. I urge you to think about this clearly because paying 20 or 30,000 more up front in a better location for a better house can mean hundreds of thousands of dollars better capital growth in 5-10 years time. All right, it can also mean the difference of $50 to $100 in rent in 5 to 10 years time. Okay, so you need to think big picture, you need to think a proper plan and what you're trying to achieve and what's the best you can do for your budget and your borrowing capacity and your comfort zone of investment. All right, so look, they're the major takeaways today that are going to change your return on investment. So I would urge you not to buy because something's cheap. It doesn't equate to strong capital growth and strong returns. I'm going to bring Peter back to finish off now. Thanks for listening. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Tony. One thing we didn't touch on, which I was just thinking there while Tony was talking, was things often look cheap to people. we might give a property option to a client, and hypothetically the build might be in the same estate. For example, the build might look like it's $20,000 more expensive through PPA. Then we sit down with we say, okay, we'll bring in all the information you have on this other property someone's given you, and then we'll pull it apart. But unfortunately, they've been tricked, because this is what happens all the time. Full turnkey is very loosely used. So it might look like it's $20,000 cheaper, but yet there's no dishwashers, air conditioners, floor coverings, window furnishings, often landscaping, fencing, driveways. We've seen all these horrible looking contracts that come in where the clients get that it might look $20,000 cheaper, but in the big picture, it's going to end up costing them $35,000 to $40,000. So it's really not a $20,000 saving. It's more like maybe costing $25,000 more than what our original price was in the same estate. And we know that whatever we put forward is high quality, because we've gone for lengths to pick the right builders in the first place, and obviously we project manage the entire bill for our clients. So just be very careful when you're looking at what's cheap again, because often they're not fixed price contracts, so prices can blow out if they hit rock, for example, or material prices or labour prices go up. So just be careful of those sort of things. You want to make sure that that if you are DIYing, that you do have that information, so you can get the right price and it is a finished full turnkey price. Alternatively, use our PPA complete done for you services, and that's going to be a fact every time. So one important thing I want to touch on. So that's a wrap up today. Again, thank you for watching this video. Next week we're going to talk about tax. It's that time of year where everyone's getting their tax done, and people are coming to our office daily saying, look, I need to buy a property. What's the best property for tax? So I'm paying way too much tax. How can I reduce my tax using property investment as the tax vehicle, as well as capital growth and cash flow? So we're going to drill down on that next week in next week's show. But I also want to touch on, you would have saw in our newsletter, we have a webinar on the 8th of August, and we've been lucky enough to get David Thomas, who's going to speak. He's the Managing Director of Trilogy Funding. They specialise in property investment funding. And we're going to ask him all the hard questions about finance. And there's so much news in the media now about the change of APRA and the bank policy about lending for any type of buyers, whether you're an owner-occupier or an investor. And a lot of people think they can't invest because of the way things are travelling these days. But there's certainly, we have seen investors every day coming through PPA and obviously investing all over the country. So you certainly can invest, but so you have the ins and outs of actually what is happening with the finance system, and not just that. Dave will answer the questions like how can you structure your finance to protect your family home? How can structure your finance so you can help you pay off your home much sooner? Not just invest in property, but how can that also help you pay your own home mortgage off much faster? How you can invest if you have no savings but you have your home with some equity in your home. How can you use a small part of that equity, and how much equity would you need to buy an investment property with zero savings? And if you do have savings and you don't have a property, how much would you need to invest? How much savings would you need to get started, whether it's again for a first home buyer or for an investor? Plus a bunch of other questions regarding finance that we know in our recent survey. Finance is one of the highest topics that was chosen that you, our listener, would like to know. So until next time, do yourself a favour, book a strategy session with myself or Tony. We love to help you. And what area of property you're looking at investing in, or splitting blocks, or reno and flipping, or buying your own home, or building your dream home, whatever it is, we love to help you get it right. So we love to. So please feel free to reach out and contact us, and we can love to help you next time. Until next week, that's PPA.